Welcome on into our weekly DFS live stream. We've got ourselves the Open Championship. Going to take a look at last week's action, try and learn a little bit of a thing or two from maybe what went right or wrong, and of course, take a look at a few of your lineups, right? We've got ourselves a little morning coffee, waking up here on this lovely Monday morning. It definitely slept in a little bit more than usual this morning, so it feels a little bit more like a Monday after the major championship, trying to get our sleep schedule back on track. But hey, we've got ourselves a 3M Open. That should wake us up here a little bit, and GPPs and some props to take down too. So cheers to everyone out there. Hopefully you're having a solid Monday yourself. And let's go out there, take a look at a few lineups, right? And like I said, deep into, try to deep dive things a little bit and learn a thing or two. So we're going to start with a look at the community contest. First off, say hi down in chat if you guys are here in the live stream. And let me know if you would like your lineups reviewed for this week and exactly what you want me to point out or that sort of thing. So first off, sip of the coffee. Need that. It's early here on a Monday. Actually, my first sip of coffee for the day. So we're going to go for a little double dipper there. But it looks like Jimmy took home the community contest. So lineup is over here on the right. Let's go ahead, kind of take it in, right? Try and analyze it here a little bit and talk about what I liked or what maybe I didn't like about this lineup. So first and foremost, Brian Harman, right? 14.3% owned. I played him this week. Was actually kind of happy to see him go out there and have the week that he did, but did not have him in the community contest. 14.3% of you did, which was a higher number than I think most would expect, right? But for main slate contest, what was his ownership, right? Let's go over here. Is this the drive the green? It is. What was he? 11.9% owned. So it was actually higher owned in our community contest. So I think that's a little bit interesting. Obviously, a lot of sharps were playing Brian Harman. Pretty good open history, like I pointed out. And the form was obviously there too. So I would say he was good chalk. Definitely a solid play there. Up top, I went with Rory and Fleetwood. Now, Fleetwood, maybe not my favorite play, but definitely paid off there with that T10 finish. Rory McIlroy T6 finish was kind of interesting. He was also in the large field GPP winner. So, compared to maybe a Scotty, right, who didn't play as well, or even a Rahm, he was up there in that same echelon of players. Rory just made more birdies, right? If you compare the raw fantasy score of a Rory McIlroy to some of the other top end finishers, he just slightly edges them out. And, in this 142,000 entry kind of contest, you have to have the exact nuts, right, to go out there and take home a contest. So we'll talk about my personal results later, but I would say it was actually slightly above break even. If you play in this $750 GPP, the rake takes you down to like $480, $490. So believe it or not, right, if you're just doing it based on like the 50-50 mark, right, for GPPs, I had a slightly better week than expected when it came to ROI. So it was kind of annoying, right? Even having Harman, right? We went out there, didn't even break even. So that's the point of these live streams, right? Is to show you if you're playing in a large field contest, right? Your expectations have to be completely different, right? Than if you're in, let's say, a 20 max, a 2 to 3 max contest, or entering a bunch of different single entries. Those a lot more consistent, right? Grinding out positive ROI a lot easier in those kind of builds. So if you're in these kind of contests, right? The reason why I show this every single week is you have to have the mentality that this is going to be a regular thing, right? Even the best GPP players, if you look at all the 150 maxers in this contest, which is something that I do from time to time, I'll bring up all of their results. Oftentimes, all of them are losing on any given week, right? Maybe like 1, 2 of like the 15, 16, 150 maxers in the $5 go out there and have success for week to week. But there's not even all that many people that are 150 maxing these contests. Now, major championship, 142,000 entries. There's going to be a few more 150 maxers, right? But I'm talking about when there's only like 35 to maybe 40,000 entries. Usually there's 20 or less 150 maxers in the entire contest, right? Playing that entire week of PGA DFS. So worth keeping that in mind that there aren't even that many people doing that out there. This FJ Bourne not only had first, but he also had fourth place. So hats off to him. He had a hell of a week. I know he won the Millie Maker too. So the guy took home over $1 million last week, which is pretty ridiculous. But hopping back to Jimmy's lineup, right? So he took Fleetwood. Okay, like I can see that. Okay, like the ownership was pretty high, but he was a decent play. I wouldn't say that you had to have him there with that T10 finish, right? You can see the GPP winning lineups, right, didn't have Fleetwood in them. Right, second place did. Third place didn't. There's going to be a few lineups towards the top that had Fleetwood because you don't need a perfect lineup to take home these contests. But the pure nuts, right, did not have him, right? Went with somebody like a Tom Kim, a little bit more aggressive up top. So I have to say this lineup in general was built very well, right? You had some chalk, you had a few lower owned pieces to counteract it, right? Adam Scott sub 10%, Louis Oosthuizen sub 10% owned were both ways to do that. Even Bjork, right? I know he was 10.7% owned in this contest, but in larger field GPPs, he was also in that single digit range. So you had, I guess, Rory, right, a little bit chalky, but that's okay. What was he? 21% in the large field GPPs. You made it work. So whether you were entering this in this contest or another contest, I think it made sense. I may have overthought it a little bit with Tommy Fleetwood. The guy had himself an absolute week. If it weren't for just the 71st hole of his, right, hole number 17 there on Sunday, first off, I would have made an extra about $1,500 there on Sunday. It cost me a whole lot of money on the prop side, actually. And he would have finished, what, like second, right? Because he triple bogeyed that 71st hole. So without that, right, he's there in T second. He's getting an extra 10 fantasy points, right, when it comes to the placement. And he's an even better play. So I know I called him a fringe option. That boy went off this week. So kind of wish I had some Fleetwood myself. That's a mistake for sure. Let's see, Scott, maybe not the best week for you, but T33, right? You still had a 6 of 6. Like, okay, that's me nitpicking there. Bjork, I love the play. He was super cheap. Again, the ownership was a little bit higher in our contest because I really liked him this week, but that's okay. Let's see, all about paper ATM in second place. Another 6 of 6. I really like the way that you went after these values, right? Like you differentiated up top. Like Cam Smith was way higher owned in our contest than most. Xander was low owned. You had Todd Hogard at super low ownership. I got to say, this lineup I absolutely love. Like this is just pure contrarian game theory. And a lot of guys that I still liked, but were low owned. So I got to say, all about paper. This is the kind of lineup that I enter for single entries. I mean, we're going to get to my single entries here in a few minutes, but that's going to be fun. It looks a lot like this, right? It's just a lot of pivots across the board, game theory going for it. Yours hit this week. Mine, unfortunately, did not, right? We'll talk about that. T Swenny's down there. What do you say? You withdrew $2,300 from Underdog. What a week. Yeah, I haven't hit the withdrawal button yet, but quite a weekend, right? We had $8,800, a little bit over that, of profit on props. We ended up a little bit up over $1,000 for our showdown over the weekend. So we're going to go through my single entries. I ended up busting out on those. I lost like $250 for main slate stuff. But we more than made it up for props, and then showdown paid for our main slate too. So yeah, heck of a week. Let's look at your lineup. Yeah, you're always into this. By the way, guys, if you're down in chat, say hi. Let me know if you guys want your lineups looked at. We're going to do a full breakdown of anyone down there. So where are you at? 30th. How many people did we have? 84. So I know 34th or 30th, right, may not sound the best, but there were still 84 entries. So not that terrible there. And you had a 4 of 6. So we're not going to focus on the results side, right? I mean, we know you didn't get what you wanted this week, but let's look at how you put together your lineup, right? And break down whether it made sense. So kind of like that lineup we just looked at. Like I like the contrarian nature here, right? Like Cam Smith, what was he in main slate contest? Just I have curiosity. Let me find a Cam Smith lineup. A lot of my top lineups didn't have Cam Smith, right? Because he didn't play all that well this week. So he'll be here at some point because I played a lot of Cam. Good old mullet man. Where you at? I promise you I played Cam Smith. He's got to be here somewhere. Come on. I just don't feel like bringing up the ownership spreadsheet. It's so much work when we have it over here. Where's Cam Smith? I played that goober this week. Is he just not in any of my top lineups? Like 0 of them? There he is. Look at that. I had to scroll the whole way down like 40 lineups in to even find my first Cam Smith lineup. He was 10.7% owned. So yeah, much lower owned. So you took pivot there. Shane Lowry pivot. He had a really rough Friday. So that's just kind of bad luck there. I definitely liked him this week too. Cam Young low ownership. Siwoo Kim, Straka riding an absolute heater. I got to say, Straka was one of the sharpest plays of the week. I wasn't even on Straka heavy, and I definitely should have been. I mean, the form coming in was on fire. What was his ownership in the large field GPP? That's what I really want to know because I feel like he didn't get the steam that I thought he would. Let's see. Yeah, 5%. Oh, my God. That's a joke. Considering the form this guy was in, 5% ownership was a joke, right? He went out there, won the John Deere Classic, had the near 59. It comes out and is 5% owned the next week at like a ridiculous price tag. Like what were we thinking out there? Like great play T20. But what were we thinking as a community to not play Sepp Straka after that? And I'm mad. I'm talking shit. I did that myself. Like, what am I doing? Not playing a Sepp Straka there. So, heck of a play. Overall, right, with Louis, another low-end option. This was very much so game theory based, right? You had leverage at all 6 spots, which meant when you got a spike performance from somebody like a Straka or even like a Cam Young with a T8 finish, right? You took full advantage of that. So I think you just got a little unlucky with a few missed cuts, right? 108th for both Lowry and Siwoo. That's just going to happen. And I mean, if you had one more spike performance, let's say that Cam Smith or Louis maybe finishes with that T8 or better, you're looking at a cash, right? Even with that 4 of 6. So this is an excellent lineup. This is the power of getting to differentiation. Is like only 6% of people, right, were getting that T8 from Cam Young, right? Only 9 community was riding the hot hand there with a Sepp Straka. He was what, 9% owned, so only what, like 9 people were able to take advantage of Sepp Straka this week. That's huge for you moving up the leaderboard. So love that kind of lineup. That's what you want to see when you're playing in a single entry kind of build. And speaking of, just because I think it segues in pretty well, let's look at my single entry. So I had 2 main single entries. These aren't the only contests I entered them in, but none of them cashed, right? So I could bring up the $33, right? I entered this into as well, the $12, so on and so forth. It would just be sad to see, right, the $0 winnings over here on the top right. But we'll look at the 2 kind of builds I put together and how I did so, kind of give you guys my thought process. So this was my main single entry. This was the one I tossed into the main community contest. So this was definitely the one I spent the most time on. And it was a 5 of 6, right? So it didn't perform all that poorly, but you can see over here in the community contest, it finished in 57th, right? The 5 of 6, I entered the other one in here. Okay. I take that back, guys. This is the one technically that I spent more time on. Investment wise, it was the same investment, right? I believe it was $188 into both lineups in terms of my single entries this week. It was a $100 single entry, $50 single entry, and then a $33 single entry, and then a $5 single entry that I did for both of these builds. And yeah, this one went 3 of 6, so did not go all that well. So that's why obviously finished in 57th there with the community contest. But I thought it made quite a bit of sense, right? It was leverage across the board, maybe even more game theory based than what you saw for a few other people there. Right? I went with a Rom up top, Cantlay relatively low owned. We had guys like Joaquin Niemann at single digit. We had the 3% owned to hit the gala. My 0.7% owned Alex Noren play paid off beautifully, right? But unfortunately, with a 3 of 6, you're not going to cash, right, in these sort of contests. And honestly, other than the T2 for John Rahm, our guys really didn't do shit regardless. So yeah, this lineup sucked, but the idea here was just to try and get some sort of leverage to the field. Joaquin Niemann I talked up as a possible sleeper play, has played well in difficult conditions before. A lot of times we see Sahith Theegala at 10 to 20% ownership. So the fact that he was 3% owned at that price tag, even considering the result, right? I thought it was a good play, right? From the game theory perspective, 3% on Sahith Theegala is outrageous, right? You just never see that. So I tried to take advantage of that. I tried to go out there and punish the field for fading one of their sweethearts, and it didn't work out, right? Like I said with T20, sometimes you have the perfect, setup, the perfect idea in place, perfect plan, and it just doesn't work out, right? That's just PGA DFS, right? You've got to have a plan of attack. You've got to be aggressive about it. Sometimes it works, and when it does, you want to get paid off handsomely. And when it doesn't work out, even if you enter, let's say, a real chalky build that doesn't work out, you're not going to get paid off, right? But if you enter a chalky lineup and it gets paid off, sometimes you don't get the full benefit of it, right? Because everyone else has that lineup. You have a harder time actually getting to the top of the board. My idea with these single entries is that when I hit, I hit. It's very simple. Like if I have a bunch, like 3 or 4 top 5 finishes, I'm taking home the big single entry, right? For like 50 to 100K. That's the ideal with these sort of lineups. So didn't work out this week, was a little bit aggressive for sure. Brendan Grace started off pretty well. He was -3 through his first 14 holes, ended up +2, so shot like +5 his last 4 holes. I believe had a few out of bounds on hole number 18. And then on Friday, right after the horrible ending to round 1, just continued that and shot 79. So, hey, Brendan Grace, real volatile, real streaky player. We definitely got the bad side of that this week. I thought we were on the good side for the first, like I said, like 12 to 14 holes. He was playing beautifully, but the wheels came off fast there. And let's see. I guess the Cantlay play, right? Anytime it was kind of the same thing as Sahith Theegala. Like we never get Patrick Cantlay at like 10% ownership. Like what was he in the large field GPP? Is I guess an even more intriguing question. 9.8% owned, right? So also sub 10% owned. We just never get that. So that was just a situation. I mean, I don't even like Cantlay, right? I don't like playing him to begin with, but at sub 10% ownership, I'm gonna do it. Absolutely gonna do it. He says, glad we got some combo plays on Prize Picks. Feel free to check out your lineup. Absolutely will, Clay. And yeah, those combo plays clutch. They seem like they're a pretty good edge too, right? Like they're posting some of the studs at I would say pretty attractive numbers. But let's find your lineup here. Where you at, Clay? There you are. You're in the cash for this week, right? So we're looking at a good lineup here. Unlike me and T. Swenny, who did not have the best lineups here. Ooh. Trying to wake up here. My throat is not feeling great. Maybe we're getting a little sick. Hopefully not. All right. Let's take a look at this single entry. So we've got Rom up there, Hovland, Connors, Taylor, Oosthuizen, and Langesk. So in the past, reason why I like checking in on this is Clay's had a lot of wild lineups, right? Like in the past, we've had to tell Clay kind of like to cool it with going on the game theory approach. So I really like what we're seeing here, right? He took a few guys with some ownership, like a Rom, right? He was lower owned in main slate contests. So I guess worth keeping that in mind. But like a Connors and Hovland, right? We're getting some ownership. I like seeing that, right? Because in the past, Clay would have gone out there and played like sub 5% at all 6 spots. And that's probably overdoing it. This kind of lineup looks perfect, right? Nick Taylor, leverage. You had leverage in Oosthuizen and Langesk. And you had 3 relatively chalky players. This is a perfect first single entry kind of build. So once again, I don't know if I need to critique this one here too much. The maybe Langesk wasn't my favorite play, but it made sense. He played well at the Scottish Open, right? What did he finish? Top 25. He finished T33 this week. So I don't think he hurt you at all at $6,900. Oosthuizen, same thing, like T23, right? Didn't really hurt or help you at that price tag. So yeah, overall, not much I can say here. I guess Connors, like I kind of want to give you shit for playing Corey Connors because he's not my favorite golfer in the world. But what was he in main slate contest at least? What was his ownership? I'm gonna have a hard time finding that, huh? Yeah, I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to find a Corey Connors lineup because like they're not gonna be very good. Yeah, we're probably shit out of luck on that one. I have to download the ownership and look at it. Yeah, maybe Connors wasn't my favorite play, but that would just be me nitpicking at that point, right? You had a good mix of chalk. You had a good mix of lower-owned plays being mixed in. How did Nick Taylor look coming in, out of curiosity? Yeah, T19 at the Scottish. Great play. Yeah, can't fault you on that one at all. Good cash there. Went out there. We're able to get into that top 15%. Pretty solid lineup overall, man. Pretty solid. What we got? Nice week, Luke. Didn't have much luck with DK, even though you had a 6 of 6. Yeah, 6 of 6 this week. The average was like 18, 19%. So it didn't really mean all that much. But followed some of your props once again. Yeah, good stuff, Brian. Good stuff. Pumped for the boots on the ground at the 3M Open. Yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun, dude. You're gonna have to keep us posted on the weather, on some of the conditions that you're seeing out there, and maybe I can purchase you a practice round ticket. You're going to be free there on Wednesday and you can go check it out then. I'll message you on Discord about that. If you're going to have some time on Wednesday, I'll buy you the practice round ticket in an Uber if you want to go out there. Your lineup is Sudsy 83. Let's take a look at it. Let's break down your lineup a little bit, Sudsy. So where did you finish? I'll probably be able to find it. There you are, 31st place. So a 6 of 6 lineup. Did you finish in the cash? You didn't. So that's what you were talking about, right? Like you had the 6 of 6 and it didn't pay off. It was one of those weeks. Like you had to have some top end finishers. Yeah, what your best finisher was T23, right? So yeah, unfortunately, that's what happens on a week like this when you have so many of those chalky, like 15, 25% owned guys that are finishing in that top 5, top 10, especially with that logjam at second place, a bunch of guys at like 6th and 8th place that are getting a bunch of placement points. Unfortunate, right? Brooks, I had a bunch of exposure to too. We had Fowler in the lineups, Minwoo, who looked great after the first 3 rounds, and then shot a 75 on Sunday. Just yeah, you had a very consistent, I would say, like you were doing the right things if you got a 6 of 6, right? It wasn't like easy to get a 6 of 6 by any means this week, but definitely a higher 6 of 6 rate than usual. So I'll try and find something to critique here. I'm gonna like I know with a lot of these lineups, I'm just like, oh, they look good because there's a good mix of chalk and pivots here. The issue I have here is maybe it's a little bit too chalky for this contest, right? So something I've talked about in the past a little bit is that in these community kind of builds, the guys I talk up in videos, so like a Minwoo, right? Yeah, I talked up Ricky this week and Brooks Koepka, right? They're going to be a solid like twice the ownership as they would be in even other single entries, right? Because a lot of the people that are playing in my community contest, right, watch my content, right? That's how you get the link to the contest. So naturally, guys like a Brooks, Fowler, and Minwoo are going to come with higher ownership. So that's why if you just look at my lineup here, right, I tried to avoid those guys at all costs. In fact, the only player that I took that I talked up this week was an Alex Noren, right, at 2.4% ownership. So like even with me talking him up, what he went from 0.7 to 2.4%, it wasn't a huge increase. So the only little nitpicking I can give you here, okay, is that maybe you want to try and like not take like the real obvious guys that I'm taking because like just everyone else is going to play them. And it's only just for this contest, right? Like I have to make a specific single entry just for this GPP because I know about this kind of steam that players are getting. So maybe you don't care about that, right? Maybe you just want to enter a lineup to have it reviewed. If so, completely ignore that. But if you do want to take like the game theory side of things for this contest, you kind of have to consider that. Like it's just let's find a few other guys that got steamed up like that. Because like Marcel Seam, like look at this, right? Like 8.3%. What was Marcel Seam for main slate stuff? I played a lot of Marcel Seam, so I should be able to find them on here. Oh, I should have just down. Look at that, right? Henrik Stenson, 5.6%. That was the nuts play this week, wasn't it, guys? That was a. I'm glad I pointed that one out. That one made me quite a bit of money. It wouldn't have been a very good week if we didn't have guys like Stenson in the lineups. Alex Noren, right, who had a pretty solid week himself. Let's find this ownership. If I click through enough lineups, we'll find them. All right, we can sip some coffee while we do this. Gives us a second. Marcel Seam had a really good week. Why is he not showing up? Is he further towards the top? He might be. He made a shit ton of birdies for us at $5,800. I mean, that was just it was a beautiful thing, honestly. I love the pricing. I hope that maybe for the 3M they continue that dynamic pricing, but I'm not sure if we're maybe because wow, why was it the whole way down there? I don't know. He was only 2.5% owned this week. That's heck of a lineup, right? So it's just like those weird players that I talk up, right, that just get some crazy amount of steam. So that, again, I'm nitpicking there. There's really not much to talk about with your lineup. I liked it a whole lot, Sudsy. But if anything, right, don't play those guys. Let's see, what else do we get? Can I look at your lineup? Absolutely, Delbert. I got you. Let's take a look. Where did you finish out of here? Oh, 27th. You made it nice and easy, right? Asking right after Sudsy. I love it. So you had a 4 of 6 that still played pretty well. In fact, almost cashed. What was the cash line this week? Was it like top 20? Yeah, so it was what top 20 ended up cashing. So you were seven spots off of a cash. You had Fleetwood in there and had so 2 fades. I have to say, like, this seems way chalky for me, right? So I know it's a single entry kind of build. You went a little crazy with the ownership, right? In this lineup where you have no one sub 10%. So yeah, if I was entering this in like, let's say this 1,600 entry contest, right? This $100 single entry, or even maybe this 555, I'd be a little bit more okay in the 555 with this kind of build. But anything over 1,000 entries, I would be out on this kind of lineup. So like in this GPP, right, where there's 3 times many entries, I wouldn't be about that because your product ownership on this kind of lineup, you might even duplicate yourself in a couple thousand entry contest. That's an issue to me, right? Like in a 140,000 entry GPP, like you would undoubtedly duplicate yourself with this kind of build. But in a single entry, you might even find a duplicate or two in those kind of, because everyone plays the chalk, right, in single entries, right? If we go through the ownership numbers, I mean, let's just do it right now, actually. Let's find the difference in ownership, because it's pretty wild when it comes to some of those guys. Let's see. So Fleetwood was 22%, right? In this GPP, he was what in our single entry, like 16 to 17% in most GPPs. Let's find a hand now, 20% owned, right? That's a solid like 5% increase in ownership. So assuming that you're entering this lineup like in a regular single entry, like it's even chalkier than what you see here. Like Connor's probably 16% owned, probably 20% on a Finau, like closer to 20% on a Denny McCarthy. I couldn't see doing that, right? And even in this build where I try to, everyone in here kind of plays more contrarian, right? These guys were all chalky. So yeah, I gotta say, I'm not trying to talk shit to you here. Not my favorite lineup. I would definitely try and take a few more pivots, take at least one player, right? That's sub 10% ownership, if not two of them. That would be my advice. You've got to find a place to move up the leaderboard. That's the issue, right? And in the 555, I'm maybe not as worried about it because you're only playing against like 500 other people, right? And everyone only has one lineup to work with. It's a little bit more doable in that kind of build, right? To get to the top of that kind of thing. But against 1,600 other people, you're playing a 20% owned guy at every spot. Like that's 20% of the field that's moving up with every good performance, right? So like your guy goes out there and has a top 5 performance and would be optimal in a GPP. Well, 20% of everyone has that too, right? And I know you have 6 players. That means you've got to hit on like 4 of those 6 players to go out there and take home that single entry, right? Whereas if you were taking guys that were sub 10% owned and maybe you only hit on like 2 of them as opposed to the 4, right, in your chalky lineup, you might still take home that GPP because you don't have a million other people that you're playing against, right, that have that player. So I would consider changing up the strategy a bit, being a little bit more leverage heavy, because like this lineup was good, right? I mean, T20, T10, right? You had the winner, Brian Harman, in this lineup, and you still didn't cash. Like that's the issue, right? Is you had a good week and it didn't matter because, and I guess the 4 of 6 didn't help, but like the ownership, I think, was also a huge part about that. So honestly, great lineup to review there because I do think that it may be a little bit on the chalky side, and I kind of worry about that one a little bit. Let's look at my other single entry lineup, which I think this is a really good segue here because this lineup was completely game theory based, right? Almost everyone I had, you could say, would be a pivot, right? I guess Brooks at 16% wasn't necessarily low owned. And this was even in a smaller field GPP, right? There were only 555 entries I was playing against here, and I still wanted that leverage. And the point is kind of what I was building off of right there, right? When I hit with a player, I want it to matter, right? Like I don't want to have like 2 guys that top 10 and not win this GPP, right? Not cash. Granted, my guys didn't hit. My best player was Henrik Stenson, the Iceman of all people, who, like I said, he helped me out in a lot of my GBP lineups, but not when he's your best player, right? I should have played a ROM over here. I should have gone to a few of my other top end finishers that finished in that top 10. That was my Achilles heel. I mean, the plus 13 from DJ, let's just not talk about that. That was he clearly just wanted to go home and see Paulina after that round. So he shot 81 there on Friday. Oh boy, he probably broke his back out there on the golf course, I'd imagine. Patrick Reed had a decent week. Louis Oosthuizen. I got to say, these live value plays, right, with P. Reed, Oosthuizen, Stenson, I'm going to continue to play them, right? And I had 5 live players in this lineup. That was not by design. It's not like I went like, oh, I'm only going to play live guys in this lineup. It was more so that Stenson, Oosthuizen were way underpriced, especially considering their track record around these kind of courses. And same thing with Patrick Reed, lower priced and probably lower owned than he should have been. So I just went out and took that value. This is going to continue to be a trend, guys. There are people that just won't play live players because they play on the live tour. And that's going to give you inherently lower ownership, which has always been the case. Like every single major that we've seen them in, they've always been lower owned than they should have been. And they're usually lower priced. Like, I don't know whether the Draftkings guys, right, are just like maybe a little biased against the live tour, right? Maybe not giving them as much credit as they deserve, but they're almost always values in terms of their price tag too. I mean, 6,200 for Stenson was as disrespectful as it possibly could get. So that was what I did with that lineup. Again, I didn't cash. I finished like midway through the board in terms of finishing. Like if this was a 50-50, I think I would have maybe cashed right in that kind of contest. Not what we're looking for, but I at least set myself up, right? If any of these guys finish top 10, like maybe even just 1, 2 of them, we end up cashing in this build. So if you're looking at results, right, maybe not the best lineup, but in terms of setup, in terms of like if I ran this through my EV generator, my simulator, this lineup I would imagine graded out really well because all the projections I had on these 6 players were through the roof. Like I said, my projections on live guys are a lot higher than most others in the industry. So that's why I play a lot of them in my lineups, guys. Right? If my projections like them more than most, right, it's going to put me on a lot of those sort of players. So the projections were good. The ownership was low. That's why my simulator would really like this kind of lineup. So yeah, that's why we went with that. I wanted to give you guys the thought process. Jordan Spieth, 5% owned. That's crazy. Honestly, if I knew he was only going to be 5%, I would have played even more Jordan this week, and I would have burnt even more money, right? With that T23, that meant absolutely nothing. So yeah, unfortunate, but I liked how we set up there. Let's see, any lineups down the chat we need to look at? Yeah, a little chalky since the contest is so small. You can Delbert, but like it's even in a small contest, like you got to have a little bit of differentiation, right? Like at least one spot, right, where you're getting like good leverage to the field, like sub 5%. Because like it's tough, right? You're gonna have to have like a perfect lineup to take home that kind of contest if all of your guys have like 15% ownership. So yeah, again, I'm just nitpicking, right? Trying to, give you a little bit of something, right? To maybe incorporate for next week. It would just be add one piece of differentiation. Because you're right with a small contest, like you can play some chalk. It's you can get away with it a lot easier, right? Like when there's only 500 guys you're playing against, or in this case, like 80, right? You mainly play single entry in 3 max on DraftKings. So what's your role on those builds? Can you play 2 chalky guys and then find low percentages? Yeah, so if you're playing like single entry 3 max, you could even play like 3-4 chalky guys. Like I was saying to Delbert, like it really only takes like 1-2 pivots to get that differentiation, but you have to have them in a lineup. So if you have a set of 6 players that are all chalky, that's really the only situation where I'm like, okay, now we got to change something, right? So that's why I told Delbert, I was like, okay, we need to add in at least one more pivot. 2 is probably better. 3 pivots is probably where I start to make my lineups. I'm way more contrarian than most people. Again, if you run through any sort of simulation on GPPs, you try to find the real value. In golf specifically, because it is so volatile, it's such a hard to predict sport, almost all of the expected value, almost all of the game theory advantage is to take lower round players, right? So that's why like a lot of the professional golf GPP players, right, PGA DFS guys, like they're just they have a boner over ownership. They're all just about taking low owned players, right? That's like all they focus on. So like I shade towards that side. I kind of tend to agree with them. That's the biggest edge that we have with golf. So yeah, I would say 2 pivots at least. 1 if you really want to make a really chalky lineup, but at least 2 in my book. And then 3 or 4 pivots if you really want to get after it. But that's honestly all I've got for this live stream, guys. If there's any last second questions or lineups that you want reviewed, throw it down in chat. A couple little last second shout outs. Again, shout out to Jimmy for winning the contest. All About Paper, I absolutely loved your lineup. Peanaboo, I didn't take a look yet, but yeah, you had a good week with some shitty live guys up top. So that's quite the performance. You absolutely killed it down low and had the Oliver Wilson take from the absolute rafters. That's interesting. How was he playing coming in? Missed cut. He did have that T2 finish. He wasn't even playing that well. And you got him out there for a T33 and made cut. That's impressive. I definitely didn't have him on my radar, that's for sure. So good stuff there. It's the Johnny 3 Sticks over there in 4th place. Solid. John Rahm up top, my boy. Wyndham Clark, good old Windham Clark. Chris Godka, this guy always top 5s. This guy's like perennially, every single week, this guy's top 5ing in this contest. I believe if you look at like the leaderboard, he's just like absolutely massacring most of the other people out there. Like this is what I mean, Delbert, right? This is a really similar build to yours, right? Except it has 2 pivots. Like it had the hand chalk, Tom Kim, Harmon. I mean, even Gooch was pretty chalky, right? He missed the cut and he still played him, but he had Xander Schauffele pivot, right? And then Hogard pivot. Like this is the perfect combination right here, right? Taking some chalky guys that you think you're going to pay off and then mixing in 1 or 2 of those guys that maybe you like and other people don't. That's the perfect perfect kind of build. So, and the reason why I point out that he's finishing top 5 every single week is look how he built. It's kind of exactly what we were just talking about, right? Where it's like 4 chalky guys, 2 guys that are relatively low owned. That feels like the right mix. That feels like the best way to approach lineups. Pepster in 6. This guy is always playing well too. 6 of 6 lineup. Had Brian Harman. Interesting. Timothy Robinette, another Brian Harman lineup, another 6 of 6. Really solid lineup there. Matt J, 6 of 6. No Brian Harman, but Marcel Seaman Stenson. Oh, some studs down there. Michael Jordan, the home course narrative. This is a heck of a lineup right here. I know he had the Koepka Fowler shitters, the ones that I was on this week too, but like this is a beautiful lineup. I gotta say, I'm impressed, guys. You guys brought your best stuff for the major championship. It's good stuff. But that's all we've got for this live stream. If there's any last second questions, I'll touch on them. If not, we're gonna hop on out of here. Get ready for the 3M Open course breakdown. Will be dropping in the next hour and a half. Core plays, our projections this afternoon, and just looking forward to a regular old PGA Tour event. Right? I know it's great to have majors. It's great to have a little bit of variety. Right? Waking up at 1 a.m. for some golf. But your boy was taking bunches of naps like there at like 2, 3 in the afternoon. I'm glad to just be able to like live like a normal human being for the next week. So looking forward to that. Best of luck out there. Hopefully you had a solid week at the Open. And let's go ahead and make this 3M Open an even better week.